Cheers, everybody. You're in the Diamond Mine. This is Danny Diamond here. Raising a glass in celebration. This whole week has been all about solo artists, and I've got a really fun upcoming new segment from the channel to tell you about in a little while. But today just so happens, and what's interesting to me is I was planning on doing this today, and I did not know, that it just happens to be Billy Joel's 71st birthday, and I was planning on doing a Billy Joel album ranking today, and one of my best friends and my IRN lounge partner in crime, Midnight Mike, informed me, and I checked this on Wikipedia, it is indeed Billy Joel's 71st birthday, so had to get this done today. It is also the Mother's Day weekend edition. I'm going to probably be pretty self-indulgent during this, even more so than usual. I'm going to try not to get too emotional. This is my first Mother's Day without my mother. She passed last summer. And it just so happens that she is the one that got me into Billy Joel. And I'll tell that story when we get to the album that contains the song that she introduced me to him with. Okay, so I am getting a little help getting through this with my favorite IPA, Hopium, from right down the road, Foothills Brewery in Winston-Salem. I like during these things to bring up some of the local places, people, and things that I'm into. And that's what this whole TDM promotes upcoming segment will be about. But for right now, we're going to jump right in and talk about these albums. Now, there's a notable omission here. At first I started to include this one record in the ranking, and I decided not to because it's so apples and oranges. Those of you who are not familiar with how I do this, I do however many albums are in the person's catalog, and I start from worst to first. Okay, so I go from my least favorite from that artist and I end with my very favorite record from them. This is not on the list because it's so different than the rest of his output, and he didn't actually even play this. Hopefully that's showing up. But this is his Fantasies and Delusion. Let's see, Fantasies and Delusions, Music for Solo Piano. Billy did not actually play this. He composed it. Richard Jew, or also known by Hyung Ki Jew, was the pianist. Really wonderful, actually. Really nice thing to have on if you're, having a classy dinner or something like that. But I'm not ranking it here. So we're going to kick off with my least favorite Billy Joel album. And I know I say this quite frequently, but this is still a really good record. Has some really wonderful moments on it. But Stormfront would have to come in last. Still, I go to extremes. I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna name my favorite song off each record. My favorite song off this record would be I Go to Extremes. I've always related to that tune, the line, darling, I don't know why I go to extremes, too high or too low, there ain't no in between. I've always been able to relate to that. I think anyone who knows me well understands why. Some contenders would be That's Not Her Style. The Down Easter Alexa is fantastic. Honorable mention would go to Shameless, but I think Garth Brooks' cover version may be even better than the one that Billy does here, but great tune. Now, I think the reason that this album comes in last, so the only time thus far that I've given a song, and I love Billy, he's my favorite solo artist, but a dishonorable mention has to go to We Didn't Start the Fire. I think at first I was taken with the kind of novelty of the tune, and it is clever in a way, but it's something that if it comes on, I can't stand it. I turn the channel. It got overexposed, and it's Billy has this, I write songs, and Billy has this quote as a songwriter, and he says that, songs are like children. Some of them grow up to be doctors and lawyers, and some of them grow up to be bums. Well, to me, we didn't start the fire, he's a bum. Anyway, enough about that. Yeah, Stormfront is going to start off the conversation. And then at number 11, we're actually going to go with his debut record, Cold Spring Harbor. There were some serious production issues that marred this, something having to do with a malfunction in the tape speed. I don't know if it was a malfunction in the tape speed during the capture of the performances or in the mastering phase or exactly what phase, but the album does sound a little bizarre for this reason, this tape speed issue. Still, there's some great tunes on here. One of my favorite ballads, and Billy's quite the balladeer, is my favorite song on this album, She's Got Away. Coming in second with a really nice and energetic, strumming guitar figure would be Everybody Loves You Now. Falling of the Rain has this just amazing opening piano figure. Billy, I think, when it comes to rock and pop pianists, is sort of peerless. I think he's one of the very best of all time. Yeah. So, my father is a very accomplished pianist and has a lot of respect for Billy's skills on the keyboard. So, Cold Spring Harbor, still some really good stuff on that record. Next up at number 10, I would have to put in The Bridge. Okay, The Bridge has generations worth of favorite prom song. This Is the Time. I'd say that to me is the top track on the record. I also really like Modern Woman. A Matter of Trust, one of the few songs where you ever see Billy playing any electric guitar and doing pretty well with it. And then Baby Grand, just a real moment, both from a piano and vocal standpoint, because it's a duet with Ray Charles. So, pretty cool record, even though I'm ranking it pretty low here. Now, this next album is the 1993 and most recent album from Billy, so 27 years ago was his last output of original material. But River of Dreams, and there's that. It's not showing up that well here, screen to screen. I'm taping during the day. Maybe that's not the greatest idea, but I think I've got a good angle here. Anyway, this was painted by his then wife, Christy Brinkley, who I sort of think of. I wonder if she's not still the love of his life. He certainly wrote enough songs about her. But I think of this album, River of Dreams, as being a return to form. And the title track is not only the best song on the album, but one of his best songs, period. Just a phenomenal song. Almost sounds like a gospel church tune. Blonde Over Blue, a Christy love song, is spectacular. It kind of has this juxtaposition between these odd verses and then this just really beautiful chorus. No Man's Land, I think of Apple Music refers to Billy as pugnacious. I think of him as, I don't know whether to think of him as a cynical idealist or an idealistic cynic, but No Man's Land is one of those songs where he's really taking stock in the way things are going here on planet Earth, and he's none too happy about it. The Great Wall of China, just a super funky groove on that one. All About Soul, a beautiful song for his daughter. Lullaby, Goodnight My Angel. So, again, return to form in my eyes. Now, this next album, I think, has a lot of fans, and I really do like it. It would probably rank a little bit higher if it were a bit more consistent, but there's some fantastic material on 52nd Street. One of his harder rocking albums, I would say, is my top track for the record, which is Big Shot. Even covered that a few bands ago in this project called Blue Stratosphere that may or may not reconvene. But fun song to play, and kind of difficult to play on guitar actually. Until the Night is a contender for a top spot on the record. A beautiful song. My Life, a funny story with My Life, the whole quote about songs that become doctors and lawyers and some that become bums. Billy was actually talking about My Life and saying that he can't stand the song. I still love it. And in some ways was my introduction, along with most people, to Tom Hanks. They used it as the opening song for Bosom Buddies, if anybody remembers that. The song Honesty is another fabulous track off this record. So we're at the halfway point. I'm trying to kind of keep it moving along, but I told you this one's going to be a little self-indulgent. But fantastic record. So if this only makes it to the halfway mark, that tells you what kind of quality we're talking about. An Innocent Man, wonderful record. Kind of an ode to the 50s, the music of the 50s. I would say it's a tie for me in terms of top tracks. You have The Longest Time. My mother used to love that song. She used to sing along to it quite enthusiastically. So it's between The Longest Time, the kind of the doo-wop a cappella thing, and Easy Money, which is just a rave up of a track. The title track, An Innocent Man, has one of Billy's best vocal performances ever. Christy Lee has, it's sort of like Easy Money, just really fun, rockabilly rave up kind of thing. There's a really nice sax solo in that. The whole album is just pretty damn choice. There were hit city, hit after hit on this album. You have This Night, Keeping the Faith, Uptown Girl, which just went crazy on MTV, Leave a Tender Moment Alone. Really fantastic record. Now, you may or may not be hearing this album in the background, I'm not sure. But at number 6, Street Life Serenade. Really cool record. And if you want to listen to some Billy that has not been overexposed but is still high quality, this is one I recommend everyone checks out as soon as you can. I'd give top track honors to Street Life Serenader on this. Coming really close would be The Entertainer. Los Angelinos, I don't know how politically correct that song is, but very spirited, and there's a great rendition on the album, Songs from the Attic. In fact, I've got to bring up that album. That's one of my favorite live albums by anyone, and it's a really cool collection of live versions of things from his first 4 albums actually, yeah. Because there is some stuff on Turnstiles on that, yeah. So it's the first 4 albums presented live on Songs from the Attic. But anyway, The Great Suburban Showdown off the same album, Root Beer Rag, kind of a Western, Copeland style piano showcase, Weekend Song. That song's interesting to me because it's kind of a really potent combo of ideas from Worst Comes to Worst and Stop in Nevada off the Piano Man record. So Street Life Serenade, great record. Okay, we're getting into the top 5 now. Some of these, particularly my top 3, just perfect records. But The Nylon Curtain at number 5 is a tremendous record. Came out, was really socially and politically conscious. It came out in 1982 as the Cold War was kind of raging. Top track on that would be She's Right on Time. A close second would be Laura. A lot of Billy Joel's material really shows his love of the Beatles. Getting a little parched here. But Laura would be one of those songs where you hear all kinds of Beatlesque ideas, particularly in the vocal harmonies. Goodnight Saigon, really touching tribute to Vietnam vets. Pressure, used just constantly still to this day in sports newscasts. A little bit overexposed, but still never really get tired of Allentown. Wonderful, wonderful song. The economic depression expressed in that song is a little timeless here in the days of COVID. A Room of Our Own. Billy famously did try and commit suicide early on in his career. I may misquote this, but he drank furniture polish, I believe, and he joked about it after surviving the incident, saying, I thought about drinking bleach, but to me, furniture polish just seemed a lot tastier. So there's a quote in A Room of Your Own, talking about stress, A Room of Our Own, talking about stress between couples, and he says, "You've got diamonds, I've got spades. You've got pills, and I've got razor blades." So, there's a dark side to this man for sure. But anyway, moving on. So at number 4, this was a huge album for me in a lot of ways. Now, my mother introduced me to Billy Joel via a song off this album. If anyone remembers when a place called Grandma's was on High Point Road, not Gate City Boulevard, but High Point Road, my mother would take my sister and I, this was prior to my little brothers being born, she'd take us there on Saturdays to have chocolate chip pancakes, and she'd listen to the radio, and she'd sing along to songs that she loved. I can remember her singing along to Crystal Gale, Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, and I remember she fell in love with the song Say Goodbye to Hollywood off of this record, Turnstiles. And so consequently, I fell in love with it too. She or my dad bought me the 45 to that song. I want to say she did, if memory serves. But that was the first piece of Billy Joel, not the first album, but the first piece of Billy Joel I owned was Say Goodbye to Hollywood. But my favorite song off Turnstiles would have to go to Miami 2017, followed closely by Prelude, Angry Young Man, which maybe has his most impressive piano playing in one single song. In fact, my first band, one of the bands we used to do gigs with, I was in this band called Jabberwocky, and we would do gigs in Tallahassee with a band called Canal Street. Their guitarist was actually the son of Butch Trucks, the drummer from the Allman Brothers. And they had this really good keyboard player, and they would play Prelude, Angry Young Man. It was so impressive to watch him nail those parts. Say Goodbye to Hollywood, we've already talked about that, still near and dear to my heart. James, I can remember listening to that, when I was in college, and I would, I was young and I was questioning, was I doing the right thing, even going to school? And that's a lot about what James is about, this young man who's just questioning every move that he makes. And, that's also my middle name. So, I was, any kind of struggling, aspiring musician / artist who has narcissistic tendencies is going to latch on to something like that, and I sure did. Still a great song, though, James. New York State of Mind, of course, phenomenal song. Love the Elton John cover of it that they would do when they would tour together. Let's see, I've Loved These Days and Summer Highland Falls. They're almost sort of like a duo of songs to me in terms of just, they document basically Billy's bipolar disorder. He talks about, it's either sadness or euphoria. Really, really great album. So now we're getting into the top 3. And really, I would just be reading through the track listing and mentioning every song if but we're not going to do that. But basically, these albums are so perfect in my mind that what it came down to in terms of ranking them, they're pretty interchangeable. It really came down to each one. I tried to join this Billy Joel group on Facebook this week, and I asked what your favorite Billy Joel song was. And my top 3, one of each is on one of these albums, if that makes sense. So they're probably the most off-reach 4 records when I'm in the mood for Billy Joel. So we're going to start with The Stranger, probably the album that catapulted him into just superstar status. Scenes from Italian Restaurant is going to get the top pick for me from this record, and that's actually Billy's top choice. I've seen on interviews recently, Billy's top choice for his favorite song from his own catalog, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. Almost, kind of it reminds me of It's Late or some of the prog rock epics, in that, it's almost this little play set to music, or a little mini movie, telling the story of Brenda and Eddie and their lives in the suburbs together. Of course, you got Just the Way You Are. I can remember being in the music room at my folks' place on Foxfire, and my dad playing the piano. I had this Billy Joel piano book, and he played Just the Way You Are, and my mom and I would sing it. That's a wonderful memory. Some inspirational tunes from this record, Get It Right the First Time, and Everybody Has a Dream, kind of on Billy's idealistic side, and then on his healthy dose of cynicism from his dark side, and showing kind of a lack of faith in the system with Moving Out, and the title track, The Stranger. Great record. Moving on, number 2, just a sliver in between these in terms of preference between these records, the top 3. But Piano Man is at number 2. Captain Jack is going to get top honors for me. That's my second favorite Billy Joel song. So Scenes from an Italian Restaurant is number 3 in terms of songs, and then Captain Jack is number 2. So I just love it. You're My Home is a fantastic song. Maybe has the prettiest guitar work in the Billy Joel catalog, with those acoustic finger-picked parts so intricate and pretty. The Ballad of Billy the Kid, the title track, Piano Man, yes, overexposed, but never really get tired of it. Great storytelling in that song. If I Only Had the Words to Tell You, one of his best vocals, and the album as a whole, I think, is maybe his most consistently impressive piano playing. And the man is no slouch on the keyboards, not at all. So the first full-length album that I ever owned remains my favorite. Glass Houses, fantastic record. And I'm going to give the top track honors. Need a lot of beer today. This piano scarf in May is making me warm. All for Lena. Top track from the catalog. Favorite Billy Joel song. So obviously my favorite off this album. That's sort of an ode to youthful, delusional, unrequited love, born from one encounter. Just an amazing song. If you've never heard it, please, as soon as this video's over, please check that out. All for Lena. You may be right. In my first band, Jabberwocky, I suggested that we cover that tune. My bandmates did. They were nice, and it didn't really fit with the rest of our stuff, but it was fun to play, and they let me sing it. So that's a good memory. Sometimes a Fantasy. Another tune that I can remember my mother singing along with the radio to. Don't Ask Me Why. Let's see. I Don't Want to Be Alone. Really, honestly, the whole album, just loved every single song. When your worst song is It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, you've got a damn fine record on your hands. And I love that tune. But if I had to pick the weakest song, it's what might be the biggest hit. And that's a fantastic song. So Sleeping with the Television On, You Were the One, where Billy does some singing in French. And then his hardest rocking tune ever. And I think people know I love hard rock and metal. Close to the Borderline, with a pretty ripping guitar solo in it. So we're going to wrap it up now. Salute once again, and happy 71st birthday to Billy Joel. Happy Mother's Day tomorrow to all you mothers out there. Honor and cherish your mother. Let them know how much you love them while they're still around. Trust me. Okay? So happy Mother's Day, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. Please be well. Enjoy life and come back to the mine soon and often. Cheers.